Survivors of the September 11th attacks say the struggle to understand the tragedy stays with them to this day. Here's more on their fight.
With the country just days away from marking 20 years since the September 11th attacks, the lives of those who survived the attacks are coming back into focus. Whether actually trapped in the wreckage of a collapsed building or ushered to safety moments before disaster, these survivors say they still live with the attacks every day. For New Jersey police rookie Will Jimeno, the injuries are more visible than in others. Following the collapse of both towers, Jimeno was buried under around 20 feet of rubble. A fellow officer died alongside him. It wasn't until nearly the end of the day before he was dug out by rescue workers.
September 11th lives with me every single day. It never goes away for those of us that were there that day, survived that day.
He said it wasn't until around 3 years later, and several therapists, until he could control his temper, sparked by anger over the death of fellow officers and people he couldn't save. There's also the physical toll, the deep scar where a piece of steel rebar went into his leg, and the brace he wears now, which ended his young police career.
So I tell people 20 years later, one of the things that I learned that night is to never give up. You fight till the end. There was something about knowing that if I fought till the very end, there was a peace that I can die with, knowing that I've given it my all.
For someone like Desiree Boucher, the attack still feels like it happened yesterday. Boucher was working in the South Tower when the North Tower was hit. The first crash was initially believed to be an accident, so an evacuation order for the South Tower wasn't issued at first, but a co-worker of Boucher's urged them all to head to the elevators.
And I watched Jim go down the corridor. He was doing another sweep. He wanted to make sure everybody knew that they needed to leave. It was time to go home. Jim did not make it out. And then I was able to get onto an elevator.
She said of the nearly 3,000 people who died at the Trade Center, 176 were from her company and 19 from her floor.
I was a walking zombie. I didn't realize, the first 14 months, if you ask me how I was fine. I was alive, I was fine. I just didn't realize how it affected me. You know, I was functioning, but it hadn't really hit home until 14 months later.
Now that she says she's found her way out of the fog, she's led around 500 tours for the 9/11 Tribute Museum, just a short walk from the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. For others, the health troubles run deeper. EMT Guy Sanders, who was working at Ground Zero when Building 7 collapsed, said he's seen health problems since that day after being washed over with dust from the collapsed buildings. Sanders was en route to the Twin Towers when they fell and lost several colleagues in the fall. He said September 11th deepened his commitment to emergency medical service, but a rare cancer linked by the federal government to Trade Center dust exposure forced him to retire in 2011. Sanders says sometimes people tell him the attack was so long ago and to get over it, but he says it was still a trauma that many are still feeling the effects of. He says it's not something to be gotten over, it's something to be addressed.
It's good to be able to speak with people who have similar experiences, even though we may come from different backgrounds, corrections, police, transit people, but we all were there, and we all had medical issues as a result of having been down there, and we all were able to talk about our struggles and the things we've been through.
Around 70 forms of cancer in people living and working in the area have been traced back to the collapse of the towers. Reports at the beginning of August say around 1,800 Americans affected by the attacks have opposed Joe Biden's participation in memorial events, calling on him to declassify evidence in the investigation into the attack. Biden on Friday signed an executive order directing the Justice Department and other agencies to begin a declassification review of the FBI's investigation of September 11, with a release of documents to the public over the next 6 months.